Are you considering selling your house for sale by owner here in Tucson? If you've never sold a home for sale by owner, then the process can be somewhat daunting. In today's post, I'd like to share with you the answers to 4 of the most common questions that come up with selling a house for sale by owner here in Tucson. Let's talk about them. Hi, my name's Carl Krenzel with Carl Buys Houses. The first question that typically comes up is with regards to closing costs. That first question is, are there closing costs when you sell a home for sale by owner? When you're selling a home here in Tucson, Arizona, I typically recommend that people figure approximately 1.5% to 2% of the sales price as your typical closing costs. Now, if you're using a realtor in some fashion, you can typically add another 3, 6, 7% in addition to your regular closing costs. Now, keep in mind, commissions are 100% negotiable. Many times a buyer may request the seller to pay some of their closing costs. And this isn't unusual, so don't get upset about it, right? There are many ways to negotiate this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a deal breaker. Avoid a common mistake that homeowners make. Don't assume that just because a buyer is asking for closing costs that they're a weak buyer. Many buyers today have enough money saved up for their down payment, but they may not necessarily have enough saved up for their closing costs as well. As prices have increased over the years, the amounts of closing costs have gone up as well, and thus it's not the same as when you bought your property. Simply negotiate with your potential buyer about potential closing costs, and if necessary, inflate the price to go ahead and cover the amount. This is a potential solution, and there are many other ways to deal with it. The next question that typically comes up is, how do you sell your house for sale by owner? Now, when you're deciding to sell your house for sale by owner here in Tucson, be sure that you're clear on the pros and cons of using a realtor. Even if you're planning on selling your home yourself, it's going to attract the attention of realtors throughout Tucson. You may want to consider some form of commission to agents who bring a buyer, and additionally, you may want to consider hiring an agent on a limited service basis. This type of service will allow you to represent yourself while having all the benefits of having your home on the multiple listing service. Typically, you'll be able to have your home on the multiple listing service, have the use of a lockbox, contracts, and more for a single fee. Secondarily, you'll want to establish a fair price. Now, pricing your home is a lot more than starting with a Zillow price and working your way backwards. That's a great recipe for leaving money on the table. You'll definitely want to get an updated CMA or market analysis from the Tucson Multiple Listing Service so that you'll know exactly what's going on in your immediate neighborhood. One of the things that you'll definitely want to consider is to prepare your property for showings. Remove clutter, personal items, and anything that would detract from the sale. If you're trying to make the most money possible, then definitely approach this professionally, right? Don't assume that the buyers are just going to see past your clutter, right? When you're selling your home for the most you can in the Tucson Multiple Listing Service, it's a price war in a beauty contest. Obviously, act professionally. Don't react angrily to every single person who calls you. It might be a realtor who wants to list your home, or it might be a professional buyer. Understand, they don't automatically assume that just because they're a realtor that they can't also be a buyer. People like myself who are also realtors are also investors who frequently call for sale by owners directly looking to make a deal. Finally, when selling your home direct by an owner in Tucson, ensure that your buyer is a qualified buyer. There is absolutely nothing worse than having your buyer fail on the moment you need them to close. Finally, the question that I hear a lot is, can you sell your house without a realtor? Can you sell your house with a realtor? Often this question comes up because people are uncertain about 2 things. First, the amount of time that's required to sell their home, and second, they need to obtain a certain amount for their home. Since statistically speaking, you're going to make more money with an agent and you're going to sell it in a lot less time than you would by selling it yourself, it simply becomes a question of convenience. Do you need a realtor to sell your home? Well, the answer is no. However, do you want a realtor? Do you want what they can bring to your sale? Convenience, advocacy, and representation. That's a question you only can answer. Another question finally is, what paperwork do you need to sell your own home? This question comes up usually because you're trying to figure out a couple things. Really, it's very simple. It's just the first thing you need is some form of contract, right? While there's no law that states how the contract is needing to be written, in order for it to be enforceable, it does need to be written, right? For this reason, I recommend you use an Arizona residential real estate contract. It's written by residential real estate attorneys, and it provides all the necessary protections that you need as a seller. Additionally, you'll want to include any disclosure forms that are required by law, and if your home was built prior to 1978, you got to disclose the known presence of any lead-based paint in the home on a federal form. This form must be signed by both the buyer as well as the seller, in addition to any agents that you might have that have participated in the transaction. It would be a really good idea for you to include some form of written disclosure from the seller to the buyer about any known defects. While the buyer has the obligation to look for defects during their inspection period, it doesn't relieve the seller of any obligation to disclose these known defects that you may know about. So be sure to include any contact information for all the parties before you deliver the executed contract and all the earnest money to the buyer to your local escrow company, because they will be the ones who are reaching out to all the parties to prepare the closing documents. I got to be honest with you, the hardest part of this whole process is the closing. Keep in mind that the hard part of real estate is not getting a property under contract. The hardest part is actually keeping the deal together and getting it closed. Many times the seller and the buyer have disagreements over repairs, appraisals, closing costs, or any number of other issues. And even on the Tucson multiple listing service, less than half the properties sell in the first 30 days. So if you're wanting to avoid the hassle of having your home listed, and you would just rather go ahead and have a fast, fair offer on your Tucson unwanted home, well then give me a call today. As an investing realtor, I know just what to do to help ensure you get a smooth closing on time, every time. Call me today, 520-403-6227, or click the link below, fill out more. Thank you so much for paying attention, and have a powerful day. Bye-bye.